This is the CNC Geekcast, the podcast where two guys with speech impediments talk about movies. I'm Joseph Collins.
And I'm Paul Combs.
And on today's episode, we'll be talking about another favorite movie of Paul's, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. We're going to be talking about the premise of this movie, the characters, and of course the battles, and much more, so stay tuned!
Now, this is the second of my favorite films we've talked about. We talked about Mad Max Fury Road, which I love everything about. So we have an episode of that if you want to check it out. Now we're talking about Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, another one of my favorite films. When are we going to talk about one of your favorite films?
I don't know, because my favorite films is basically films that everybody has already talked about. Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Indiana Jones, Back to the Future. Don't think of another one. I mean, those are my favorite films. But I guess what we could do in the future, maybe we could talk about Hot Fuzz. I enjoyed that film.
No, we should definitely do that. We should continue talking about Edgar Wright. Just because we both love Edgar Wright. And we'll get into that a little later in the episode. Mm-hmm. But for now, because
we're just going to talk about Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
Yeah, definitely.
And how this movie has a very interesting premise and universe.
No, it does. Started off with, the plot is actually relatively simple. Mm-hmm. Scott is a aimless 22-year-old. I don't know if he's 22. He's in his early 20s, one would assume. Yeah. But he's aimless. He's just not a good person. And then he sees this girl in his dreams. And all of a sudden he sees her in real life.
Yeah. So
he tries to get with her. In order to be with her, he has to defeat her 7 evil exes.
Which is just a fantastic premise.
No, it is an absolutely fantastic premise.
It's original, too.
No, and it is definitely original. And my favorite thing about the movie, my favorite thing about, the universe itself is the amount of video game references. Yes. The sound effects, the visuals. It has the P-bar that looks straight out of Street Fighter 2.
Yeah,
you have the battle sequences with the coins. It really feels like a movie specifically made for video game fans.
Yes, I do agree with that, and I love how they basically just ignore it. They don't address it. They don't acknowledge it. They don't explain to you how the universe like this exists. They just say, okay, this is the universe, and have fun with it, and they don't over-explain it. And I do love the fact that it is a reference and an homage. I'll say a pain and homage to video games. It understands the references, and we enjoy because of that. And I really, once I understood the reference of Scott Pilgrim and it was a video game thing, I'm like, yes, I want to see this film.
Yeah, no, exactly. And this is in contrast, because everybody remembers a couple weeks ago, the trailer for Ready Player One came out at Comic-Con. Mm-hmm. And I'm one of the people that frankly couldn't be less interested in it. Yeah. On paper, I should be, because it's a film aimed specifically at people like me, people that love 80s references, people that love video games, people that love all this. But in Ready Player One, even in The Big Bang Theory, which is a very popular television show, they make the references so integral to the show that this basically is the show. Like, hey, look at this thing. I know you remember this thing, or I know you love this thing. And they don't worry about having good characters. They don't worry about having interest in plot or interest in moments.
Yeah. Well, speaking of 80s reference, I just reminded of this. There's actually a movie called, I think it's called Turbo Kid, that I saw a preview of. I don't think you've heard. Have you heard of that film?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, have you seen the previews for it?
Nope.
Okay, well, afterwards you gotta see the previews, because if you like 80s references, this movie is 80s references to the max. But getting back to the film, no, I do enjoy the premise, but at the same time, they have really good characters in this film too.
No, it did. It had emphasis on good characters, though. These characters are all terrible people.
Yes.
Scott Pilgrim is an absolutely terrible person.
His roommate's terrible too.
Yeah, if there's one thing I could tell you in this movie, one advice to take, is just don't be like Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, because at one point he's dating a girl called Knives, and this girl is so supportive, so wonderful, so, it seems like kind and good-hearted, and just absolutely loves the band's music. The minute that she hears the band playing, she falls in love with the band and is promoting the band.
Yeah.
Going all over the thing, doing all these things for the band. And instead, what Scott does is, of course, being Scott, finds another girl that he's even more enamored with, apparently, and starts pursuing her, and completely forgets about Knives, and at one point breaks up with Knives because he has to. Not because he wanted to, but because his roommate said, you gotta do this thing, just get it over with.
And not only that, he just complains about everything. He postponed the breakup to the last possible moment until he's absolutely forced to.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
He's cheating on her for a little bit, which is awful. Then again, he just complains. My favorite little tidbit in this movie is that Scott is such a terrible person. The negative version of himself,
when he faces him.
Yeah, when he has to face him at the end of the movie, is actually a great guy. Scott even says that. He's like, Nega Scott, oh yeah, we're going to go get lunch next week. He's a great guy. That should tell you something, Scott. The negative version of you is great because you're so terrible.
Yeah, and not that, but the girl with the
Ramona?
Yeah, Ramona, that has an R for the first name. I'm terrible at R's. That's why I'll be a terrible pirate. Because I can't say my R's. Din din.
Get out.
Oh. But no, she's also a terrible person because not only does she ignore her, which is fine, ignore him, which is fine, it's like this guy is really, really like heavy on you and you're ignoring her. It's like, him, like, yeah, that makes sense. But then she plays mind games. It's not completely open with him, and doesn't explain that in order to be with me, you have to defeat my 7 X's until like at the end or toward the end. Like,
she doesn't explain that until
he's about to face one of them.
Yeah, until he's about to face one of them.
Yeah. This is terrible.
No, that's not something you do. If you're in a situation where you have evil exes and they want to kill any future person you date, you should really tell someone. Just advice to all our listeners out there. Mm-hmm. If for any reason your evil exes ever join a league, just inform future prospective mates of that.
This is true. But what did you think of the 7 X's as characters?
I loved how exaggerated each of them was. Mm-hmm. Like, first off, Matthew Patel's the first one, and it really introduces you to the universe. I didn't know much about this film before I saw it. So with Matthew Patel, that's when it starts introducing, like, I was expecting it to be like hand-to-hand fight, like kung fu and things. But Matthew Patel comes out, and he's able to summon these demon hipster chicks. Which is what they actually call themselves.
Yes.
And then he's able to shoot fireballs.
Yes.
So that really explains kind of the movie
in a nutshell.
Yeah, it really just sums up the movie. Like, I don't expect seriousness at all in the film.
Was that the Bollywood character?
Yeah, that was the Bollywood character too. He does the Bollywood dance, and it's great.
What was he also like an emo guy? Was that another one?
No, he was the emo guy too. He was the emo pirate.
Emo Bollywood pirate.
Yeah, he was a lot of things.
Oh yeah, and but what was the other? Now, what was the other fight that he had?
Well, he had Chris Evans.
Oh yeah, Chris Evans was fantastic in this film.
Yeah, Chris Evans was fantastic. He really played an egotistical actor.
Yeah, very well.
Yeah, he sold it. One thing I really love about each of the battles is that in order to defeat them, he's able to defeat Matthew Patel with hand-to-hand combat, with just physical. But he can't do that with the other ones. He has to figure out clever ways. Chris Evans is a skater actor who has the ego the size of a mountain.
Yeah, and thinks that he's the greatest thing. And so the way that Scott Pilgrim defeats him is like, well, I bet you couldn't accomplish this. And he's like, I bet you can. And it goes so fast down the flight of stairs that he just busts down the end and busts into lots of coins.
One thing about this movie, though, it seems to have very lax laws regarding murder.
Yeah, it does. And I was thinking the same thing. It's like, wait, this guy just died, didn't he?
No, he did. He just died.
And then it's like,
it wasn't. You can't say it was self-defense because you're not even getting questioned by the police. And then when you defeat Gideon at the end of the movie, you just go into his club and start killing people.
Yeah. What I find funny about him defeating Chris Evans is that Chris Evans was on the set of a movie.
Yeah,
and he got defeated during that set, and the movie crew's like, well, okay, I guess we just go home now.
Yeah, exactly. What does the movie crew do, Scott? You need to think about the consequences of your actions, Scott.
Yes. And there was another one. There was also the twins.
The interesting fact about the twins in the movie, they have this really cool battle. They use their amps, because there's apparently a thing amps can do. Well, they shoot out a Yeti, and...
What makes that fun is that I think that they went to a place that was actually called the Battle of the Bands.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was of course, goes back to how great Edgar Wright and the writers, how clever they was. Like, well, if it's gonna be a battle, let's have it called the Battle of the Bands, and them actually have a battle.
Yeah.
And they do this with, like you said, with amps, and they got to the point where they were playing so loudly that they summoned a Yeti, and the twins played so loudly that they summoned dragons, and these avatars of one another start fighting, and the audience like, what the...
But I love how everybody just accepts it. Like, no one's like, why can my aunt do this?
No, that, but the audience loved it to death. I mean, the people who were there loved just it. I guess they accepted it as a special
interesting
effects.
thing about the twins fact, though.
Yeah.
Interesting fact about the twins, I should say, is that you know the reason they didn't have any lines in the film?
Why is that?
Because the actors actually couldn't speak English. They got a couple pretty Asian actors who looked similar to play the twins, but they didn't know a single word of English.
Yeah. And another thing is, what does the twins? What was the relationship with the twins with the Winona?
Well, interesting thing about this, I actually kind of wish the movie had went into this because it illustrates again how terrible of a person Ramona is.
Yeah.
Is she actually dated each of the twins at the same time, but the twins didn't know that.
Oh wow!
So after they find out, and after she breaks up with him, because it's always her breaking up, they vow never to do anything separately again.
Yeah.
So that's the reason they fight together in the film. That's the reason the battles 5 and 6 are combined.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. And then you had the
the vegan guy.
Oh, this is interesting because Scott in this movie defeats not only Captain America but one of the Supermans.
Yeah. Well, it was one of the lesser Supermen, though. He was in Superman Returns.
But it actually has one of the best Superman scenes in it, when him flying over the Earth and hearing all of the sound.
It was just the other 99% of the movie that
yeah, and I think that scene would have been even better in Man of Steel, but that's for a different time.
Yeah, but I like his power is centered around vegan. Mm-hmm. Because he's a vegan, that makes him better than you.
Yeah.
Which gives him psychic powers.
And he was all white.
Yeah. It's really an homage to Dragon Ball Z, though.
Yeah.
Because he had the spiky hair, he's able to stop things with his mind.
The Super Saiyan, you know?
Yeah, he's a Super Saiyan.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, super vegan, I should say.
Super vegan. But I absolutely love when Scott tricks him in drinking half and half, and that's how the vegan police comes down and said, well, you drunk half and half. Well, I didn't know, but it was only get 3 strikes. Like, you did get 3 strikes. The first one was you ate chicken and parmesan. Oh, that's not vegan?
I really like that, but how did Scott know that would work? That's my only thing. Like, how did he know giving him half and half would remove his vegan powers? I don't know exactly. I mean, I'm sure there's details in though. There probably is, but it goes back to the movie. I love how the movie doesn't take itself seriously at all.
Yeah.
He's just able to figure these things out, and then it works out in his favor. He's like a video game protagonist, of course.
Of course. But there was one more battle after this before?
Yeah, it was again, I like how each of the battles have like different video game elements. Mm-hmm. Like you have to do everything. You have the co-op battle, like when he fights Roxy, because Scott won't hit a girl, he has to team up with Ramona in order to take her out.
But why can't Scott hit a girl?
He didn't want to hit a girl.
Oh, he didn't want to?
Yeah.
So Mo teamed up with...
He said because they're soft. he doesn't want to hit a girl because they're soft. That's actually the line in the film.
Oh, wow. So now Ramona decided to fight her because they got a nasty breakup, was it?
Well, all the Ramona's breakups were apparently nasty because each of her boyfriends was ex, and she says she may have dabbled in being she uses the B word, but this is a family show. Yeah. She says she's dabbled in that in the past. Mm-hmm. So... Yeah. So, but... Yeah. I mean, truthfully, the evil exes all appear to have legitimate beef with her.
No, did you have a legitimate beef because he's a terrible person?
Yeah.
But the last one himself was a terrible person, which was...
Yeah, I kind of like that. The fact that... The progression that shows how far Scott's willing to go for her, and then at the end, because he goes so far, he tries to defeat to profess his love.
Who was the last battle? What guy was the last battle?
I guess I should say that, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Well, the last battle is a guy called Gideon Graves, who's just the most pompous butthole one could imagine.
And he's also a businessman who basically signed Scott's band, but it's like you're now enslaved to me pretty much. And
it's deal with the devil.
Yeah, deal with the devil. And not only that, but he has a controlship on Ramona too. Yeah. So he pretty much has to do what he says.
And he's the one that came up with the League of Evil Exes. Mm. He actually is a pretty evil dude.
But he's a good antagonist though.
Yeah, he is. He's played by Jason Schwartzman, and Jason Schwartzman does a very good job with a pretentious douche. Yeah.
Well, everybody just had fun with these roles.
No,
it's obvious that Chris Evans did. I mean, it seems like these roles seem to be simple for an actor. I mean, be that like it's like you just it's. I don't want to say it's simple to over exaggerate, but I guess. people have fun over exaggerating.
It's the idea is that how often can you just go and chew scenery? Like it's what they're doing. Like they're overacting and it works so well.
And they're allowed to. That's the thing, and they have fun with it. Like it's like someone just goes like, it's like I'm gonna go over there and have myself a taste of that cake. I mean, it's like it's overacting, but that's the point.
I like to imagine the actors went on set because you have some good actors and they tried to act normal. Mm-hmm. The director Edgar Wright was like, no, overact more, chew more scenery.
Yeah, just have fun with it, guys. Yeah. Like, and once you give an actor that liberty, I'm sure they just appreciate just that because there's nothing, there's no red lines, there's no restrictions, and you're allowed to. Just all these ideas come in your head how to overact, and Edgar's like perfect, brilliant, printed. Next scene.
And this did have a great cast too. As we've already said, Brandon Routh, Chris Evans, Michael Cera, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Jason Schwartzman.
Yeah. So
even Macaulay Culkin's brother, Kieran, I think his name was Kieran Culkin.
No, still terrible. He
is a terrible person.
Yeah.
That seems to be the.
Well, he was stealing everybody's boyfriend. So he comes up. He's gay and. He sees this guy who's with this other girl, but of course, he's like, he likes him and then steals him. It's like, that's a terrible thing to do.
Yeah, it is. You're terrible.
Yeah, terrible people.
Yeah.
But, what is it? But no, the last battle was really...
No, the last battle was really good. In fact, the band should have been happy. Scott's band, Scott has friends, the Sex Bomb band, they're able to get signed by Gideon, who's the final battle, who's the final boss, I guess you should say. And they should be happy, but he goes in and they're miserable. They sold out, they're miserable, and he walks in, he talks to them, then he gets up to Gideon. And he sees Gideon holding Ramona hostage, basically, because she has that mind control chip on. So Scott professes his love to Ramona,
thinking that the power of love will save him.
Yeah,
but he gets killed.
Yeah, he gets killed. It was thankful he picked up that extra life earlier during the fight with the Caddy and Naga twins. Yeah, I
extra life. Oh, that's
I
great.
don't understand how this works in this movie.
But at least he got a life, right?
At least he did. I guess it's when you say get a life to someone in real life, you're like, just get a life. Yeah. So I guess the movie took that to the literal extreme.
Yeah. But I liked it that when he died in that, I guess it was Purgatory. That wasn't Purgatory. He sat there, and I don't know who talked to him. I think Ramona talked to him.
It was Ramona.
And basically told him how bad of a person he was.
Yeah.
And he had to have self-respect for yourself. Yeah. Because your lack of self-respect for yourself is, you're projecting that onto other people.
Yeah.
So in order to respect others, you first must respect yourself. This is the message of the movie.
Yeah. And I like that Scott, at that point, acknowledges his own faults. Ramona's like, this whole time I've been going after you. Well, he's neglected to care about himself. Mm-hmm. And at that point, he realizes he needs to defeat Gideon for himself. Yeah. And the next fight with Gideon, when he gets the chance to do it again, he gets the power of self-respect.
Yeah.
Which I've always really loved about this movie, though. The fact that the power of self-respect is greater than the power of love.
Yeah, well, for this movie, yes. I think... It's a very interesting, I don't want to say dilemma, but very interesting relationship because having self-respect means you can also having love for yourself. Mm-hmm. So it does work in both ends, but I think it's not that, I don't think self-respect is better than love. I think that doing it out of love wasn't working for Scott because he didn't have respect himself.
Yeah.
So in order to win, he had to respect himself first in order to love other people.
Well, it goes down to that phrase, in order to love others, you must be able to love yourself.
Yes.
Because you have to have respect for yourself. And that kind of illustrated, because after his breakup with Envy in the movie, I kind of forgot to mention that actually. Yeah, but part of the reason Scott is the way he is because he had a bad breakup. Someone stomped on his heart, as he actually says in the movie. And at that point, he starts lashing out to others. He starts...
I mean, his heart was stomped on, quote unquote, not broken, but stomped on, and then just, I get that. But, no, I do find, and I do love how he got the sword after that point, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So, no, I think the battles were great. I think the premise was great. What did you think of the relationship between Scott and Winona at first?
Well, Scott and Ramona.
I mean, that relationship in general. Well, because at the end of the movie, they ended up together. And I do disagree with that, but let's get into the relationship before
they disagree. They ended up with each other in the official release.
Yeah.
Like, we'll say that. There is another scene film where he ends up with knives.
But I think there should have been the case. And the reason why is because it goes along with the self-respect. It's like you're going here, you're going after this other girl, but you don't respect yourself. So before you go after this girl, stay with the girl that you're with. Keep the promise you made. If it works out, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But it goes against the lesson he learned in the film. That's what I feel like.
Well, actually, I kind of disagree when I've thought about it. I will disagree because part of the reason I will say this is Scott doesn't deserve knives.
Yeah.
Even at the end of the movie, I don't think he deserves knives.
But I don't.
Because I think that's implied is that knives is basically like I could do better. Mm-hmm. Like I can see that. I can see why they may have went that way.
So you agree that he should be Ramona?
I agree that he should have been Ramona because that's going to end badly. It is. There's no chance of it not ending badly, based on who the characters are. And I think Knives pretty much deserves better than Scott.
This is. I mean, I guess it's a good. I mean, that's a good point. I know it's kind of sad when you think about it. It's like two bad people getting one another. It's like that's not a very happy ending, is it?
No. The movie doesn't really have that much of a happy ending, especially considering Scott killed like a bunch of people.
Yeah, and well, she did help kill one of them.
No, she did, but even then, you're a murderer, Scott. You should be in prison, Scott.
This is true, but at the same time, I don't know how the whole thing works when it comes to all this stuff. But I mean, it's really, this film is so good and so well paced. That's definitely a credit.
Well, that's one of my things.
Edgar Wright.
Well, that's one of my things I love about the film too is the pacing. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really spend time to establish everything. It just throws you in and it keeps up a fairly constant pace. Some films have the peaks and the lows, but this film I would say is pretty much constant. Mm-hmm. Like it has its energy and it has its distinct visual style, which I really think speaks to Edgar Wright's filmmaking, because all his movies do. Pretty much all of his movies are very well paced, and each have that distinctive visual style.
And that's true, and I also like how during this film there's transitions when Scott and Knives were hanging out and they were dating, they would go to these locations. And in order to transition between the two, a normal film would have them like walking along the side and the camera pans them walking by, they have a conversation, and that's fine and all, but it's a very boring moment in the film. And to keep the energy up, what Edgar Wright does so well is his transitions. And he had a transition where the camera would quickly zoom from one location and you see a blur, and then it goes to another transition very quickly, and then you add all those sound effects they have and the music transition, and so it does a great job of keeping that energy up while transitioning through scenes.
Yeah, it works so well because in that scene you're talking about, it's kind of like a constant shot. It's like the camera itself is moving to the right, from left to right the whole time, and that whole time they're changing scenes.
Yeah,
it works very well.
It does.
And as you said, it does a good job keeping the energy up, but it also does a good job illustrating how aimless Scott is, that he's just kind of going from place to place, not really knowing what he wants, not what he wants to do, just...
And the conversation seems, you listen to the conversation, he seems a bit bored by it, too.
Yeah, he seems bored, yeah.
No, just really just walking around like, just going through the motions.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm supposed to do this, he's my girlfriend, I got to, but I'm not really wanting to.
And I also love how dense the visual scenes are in the film.
Yeah.
Because as I've noticed I've seen this movie probably 5 or 10 times. I've seen it a bunch of times. I love, each time I watch it, I notice a lot more visual elements. Because each of the fights is numbered 1 through 7, right?
Yeah.
But each of the fights have like monikers or dialogue that conveys that. Like at one point in the movie when he starts fighting Matthew Patel, his roommate says, "Hey, it's that one guy," and he's wearing the number 1 on his jacket.
Yeah. And
when he beats him, he gets 1,000 coins and all that. It's all these distinct elements. It's fun.
No, it's true, and because of the fact that we've learned a lot about movies, you can detect more stuff like that. You can detect the small details.
No, exactly.
I mean, I was talking to my brother about Back to the Future, and if you want to talk about that, I think it would be a good thing to talk about because of how well structured that movie is when it comes to letting you know all the details about it. And the opening scene to Back to the Future is like one of the best opening scenes in the sense of information. This movie is great. This movie is awesome. Not awesome, but
I think it's awesome. I
it's
really
awesome.
do.
Yeah.
Edgar Wright is just one of the filmmakers I love because a lot of filmmakers, you kind of either get style or substance, other than a few. I mean, Nolan is a fantastic director with style and substance. So is Wes Anderson, and so is Edgar Wright. But so many directors, you get that, you have that,
either or.
You get the either or, like Tron Legacy, which was 2 episodes ago, is It's a very big case of style over substance. It's pretty, but there's nothing there. Paper thin characters, convoluted plot. Mm-hmm. Whereas like Edgar Wright films, you get both the style and the substance, which is really hard to do.
It is, and you also get really creativeness, because we talked about Baby Driver, and how these scenes are very creative. Like someone just thinking about, looking at the environment and say, okay, what can we do here? Mm-hmm. What can we do there? How can we improve this? What can the actor, do? And how can we the creative, I love it because you can tell that he takes his time to actually dissect a scene and ask him, how can this be fun? How can we get this? How can we get the most out of the scene and the most meaningfulness out of the scene, and so have fun with it? Mm-hmm. So, but no, I think he's definitely one of the better directors, Hollywood.
Yeah, as I think I said on a Baby Driver, he's probably my favorite director. He and Wes Anderson.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, we talked about this movie to death.
No, we really did, but I love it, and kind of makes me want to talk about Hot Fuzz. Make me want to do a future episode on Hot Fuzz.
Well, we should do a whole future episode on Hot Fuzz.
We totally should.
And maybe in October we can do one of Shaun of the Dead, because comedy, horror movie.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good idea.
Yeah, but what's on store for the audience next week?
We're actually going to be doing the new King Kong film.
Okay.
Like I love monster films. I do. Yeah. There was Pacific Rim a few years ago, which was fantastic, and Godzilla, which actually left some to be desired. But I will go see any film that has a giant monster or a giant robot.
Yes, and of course Pacific Rim is the best mix of the two. When that movie came out, so we need to do a future episode of that one. Maybe when the sequel comes out, we can combine the two.
Yeah, but King Kong Skull Island is the most recent, and we really like the choices made for this film. So we're going to be talking about the film and all those choices on next episode.
All right, cool. Well, in the meantime, I'm Joseph Collins.
And I'm Paul Coombs.
And you've been listening to the CNC Geekcast.